Anne Rice joins me here live in Studio Q. Hello, welcome back.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
It's been some time, about a decade, since the last installment of the Vampire
Right,
Chronicles.
right.
Why
It
now?
has.
Why'd you want to revisit it now?
Well, I missed Lestat. I missed my hero, and a lot of new ideas were coming to me, and a lot of new questions, a lot of new possibilities. When I wrote the last book, Blood Canticle, 2002, I really thought that I was finished. I'd written quite a few books with my vampires, and I thought I was moving away. But as I said, I began to miss Lestat a lot, and I got a second wind. I got a second inspiration,
And
really.
what were those questions? Because you said you were raising questions. It was time to do it. What was at the fore that you wanted to bring him
Well,
back?
whatever happens with my hero is sort of a mirror of whatever happens to me. And I'd had a whole slew of new experiences. I'd left New Orleans and moved to the West Coast. I'd traveled. I'd been to Switzerland and France and England. A lot of new things were happening in my life. And I think it was natural that I wondered, where's my hero? What's he been doing? How does he reacting to iPhones and satellite surveillance and a culture where every 5 minutes you're stopped and asked for your papers in one form or another, or plastic money? How's he reacting to all that? How are my immortals, the old ones, how are they getting along in this society?
And Lestat, your main character, I mean, he's vain, yet alluring, suffers from ennui. His nickname in the vampire community is the Brat Prince. He's older because he's one of your oldest characters.
Yes.
You created
Yeah.
him back in the 70s. And I appreciate that you've learned to love him and he's your
Oh, yeah.
friend and all
Yeah.
those things. But what else is it that personally draws you to him?
Wow. I sometimes I think it's not good to analyze it too much. I just know it's like a romance. I mean, he and I are in love. I love being him. And he's sort of everything I'd like to be in a way, or a variation of everything I'd like to be. He's certainly a way I would like to be for a while. And when I write about him, I see the world through his eyes and I see things I don't see as myself. So it's great.
It's interesting when you first open this latest book of yours because you dedicate it to a few people, but among them is John Bon Jovi.
Yes.
Now, last year, in a Facebook post, you talked about John Bon Jovi. You referred to him. You called him Vampire Lestat incarnate.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Why is John Bon Jovi today's Lestat in your view?
Well, Lestat became a rock star. In his biography, which was published in 1984, The Vampire Lestat, he was a rock star and he went on the stage and he was a long hair rock star, very much like John Bon Jovi. So for my hero, John Bon Jovi is sort of an idol, a mentor, a kind of inspiration. He's what he would like to be. My hero is very frank about that. He talks about the people he admires in the culture. In the beginning of that book, he talks about how he read about Sam Spade, the great Dashiell Hammett detective, and he wanted to be the Sam Spade of the vampires. He wants to be the James Bond of the vampires. And I think he'd like to be the John Bon Jovi of the vampires too, but he's retired as a rock star. So
Yeah.
it's down to listening to him through his iPhone and, just enjoying his songs a lot, especially Bad Medicine and Living on a Prayer.
Do you have a relationship, a friendship with John Bon Jovi?
No, but I did meet him once. I met him in New York backstage after the premiere of the musical Lestat. I was standing with Elton John, who created the musical, really, with his wonderful music. And John Bon Jovi jumped up on the stage and said he would like to say hello. And of course, I went into fan shock and didn't manage to
probably
say
mutual.
anything. I didn't manage to say an intelligent word, but he was very cheerful and very wonderful and very much as handsome in person as he ever was, in a film or a rock video.
I don't have to tell you this. Vampires are very of the moment, of the time, trendy in popular culture, Twilight, HBO drama, True Blood. You predated all this. Your vampires predated all this, but you have said that vampires serve as an apt metaphor for the human condition. I want you to expand on that.
Well, I think they've always been that way. I mean, they are the monster that was human once and still looks human and has really not so much supernatural gifts as preternatural gifts, can live forever, but still has human organs and a heart and soul in many respects. And I think they're great metaphors for us because secretly we all feel a bit like a monster. We're all predators in our own way. We're all outcasts to some extent. And the vampire is all of those writ large.
Mm.
And we identify with them. And I also think day to day, we're immortals in our own mind. You can't really get through this life if you're thinking every moment that you're going to die, you
Hmm.
know? So we live as vampires. We live with the idea that we're immortal, that we have all the time in the world to find out everything.
And because in your thinking and your writing, you look at everything that's around you, the modern world, iPhones and technology. Where do vampires? I get that they're sort of a timeless thing, and we can all individually and societally identify with them.
Hmm.
But why do we see this upsurge? Do you think now in identifying, if I can put it that way, with vampires?
You know, I don't know. The only thing I can say is it seems author driven. You know, if you didn't have Laurel K. Hamilton and Charlene Harris and Stephanie Meyer, maybe you wouldn't have all these popular vampires. Maybe vampires would never have gone mainstream,
Well,
you
you
know.
you made the mainstream. Let's just
Well,
let's just call it what it is.
well, when I started though, it was very rare to write a book about vampires that
Hmm.
was mainstream. I mean, it was considered strictly a genre thing, a comic book thing, really.
I know, but if I say vampire to someone, they will say Anne Rice back to me.
That's humbling.
Hmm. You also mentioned in a recent interview that when you wrote Interview with a Vampire, the book that started this series at any rate, it was after the death of your daughter to leukemia. And you said, and I just want to quote you here, you said, "I didn't know it at the time, but it was all about my daughter, the loss of her, the need to go on living when faith is shattered."
Hmm.
How how did writing about vampires, I'm just trying to think back to what you just said and push you a little bit on it. How do you think writing about vampires helped you cope with such profound loss?
Something about the fantasy framework, the alternative reality, really freed me up to talk about the pain I was feeling. I wasn't getting anywhere with pedestrian realism, trying to talk about it. Writing a realistic story about a mother who lost her child just wasn't going to cut it. But when I went into that alternative reality in which vampires existed and vampires could talk, somehow I was able to deal with everything I was feeling and had ever felt. And I don't know why that is.
Mm.
I mean, this differs so much with writers. It's almost like something you're given, not something you choose, to write in a historical framework, to write about fantasy characters, to write horror novels. You draw those cards, really. And I had to discover that that's where my real um, talent
Mm.
lay, was writing about the supernatural. And I just know I was liberated.
It felt freeing and it felt
Yeah, it was like
safe.
stepping through a door and saying, "Well, I can do it in this book. People will understand," you know?
Mm. This book, Prince Lestat, as you said, it's very 21st century. Um, they have the technologies. One even hosts an online radio show.
Right, yeah.
And I appreciate what you said at the beginning when I asked you why now, why is there this time, 2014, when you've left this behind you for more than a decade. But beyond the telecommunications, or was there something more than we're all running around with iPhones and online, that combining that with modern telecommunications that interested you? Like, where's the connect?
You know, I guess what I wanted to do was talk about the entire tribe, and the internet has changed our concept of the world. It's made us so globally conscious. You know, we are so in. I go on my Facebook page every day and talk to people literally from all over the
Hmm.
world. I mean, from everywhere. I thought, well, how are the immortals coping with this? It was something that obsesses me. How are we all coping with it? What is it doing? Is it making us better people? Is it giving us opportunities that we never had before in terms of consciousness and moral ambition and so forth? People, you hear so much about the downside of all of it, social media and the internet, but actually it's wonderful.
So I mean, you weren't setting out to make a statement about the dangers of today's oversharing culture.
Not at all. No, I was saying, how are these characters that are real to me and supposedly very wise, how are they going to deal with all this? Are they going to understand how good this is? You know?
Interesting that you say that because Lestat, I mean, he doesn't live for the future. He lives and longs for the past. He's over 200 years. He
Hmm.
calls the iPhone that little thing and
Slab of glass.
slab of glass, forgets what many of us do, which is to recharge it.
Yeah.
He forgets how to use computers. Why was it important to include a character that came from it from that direction. Because if you say, this oversharing and stuff is all good, that's more skeptical of new technologies.
Well, he is me. So, and am still wrestling with the mechanics of it
Mm.
all. You know, I have a wonderful tech assistant, Beckett, who handles the computer, the Facebook interfaces, whatever,
Yeah.
the software, the problems. And when I don't charge my iPhone, which is often, it's sitting in my purse right now uncharged, he's there with his iPhone, take up the slack. But I had to go at it from Lestat's point of view. But I'm still in love with all of it. I still think it's absolutely wonderful. And Benji, my little boy vampire who has the radio show in the novel, he's the one who's right about it all. Let's use all these tools to make our life better. Stop talking about the way they're invading our privacy. Let's make them work for us.
Well, you're like Benji. Beckett may set up the infrastructure, but you're
Right.
the one engaging. On Facebook, you have a bazillion. I think it's a million, not a bazillion, but
Right,
but
yeah.
a million followers.
Right.
What does Anne Rice get out of having such a big presence online?
Oh, boy. Well, first of all, the companionship. I wake up in the morning and go and see what the people of the page are doing, what they have to say. There are all kinds of recognizable names, people who follow the page and contribute every day. And many of them bring links and stories to the page to talk about. They know I'm an advocate for human rights, for gay rights, for women's rights, for everybody's human rights. And right away, there are stories to talk about and topics in the news. And I love the interchange. I love the fact that I can ask them questions. Like the other day, I said, let's try to discuss without spoilers, who's your favorite character so far in Prince Lestat, if you've read it. They gave me invaluable feedback. They let me know the book is being read. They gave me so many posts, hundreds of posts, about all different characters that it was wonderful. It was comforting. It was great, inspiring feedback.
Do they sometimes, the people out there, do they just make the assumption that it's not you, Anne Rice, that it's the Anne Rice production, that it's not you actually engaging with them?
Sometimes,
Yeah.
but I think at this point there's so many regulars on the page who know well that it's me that any objection like that, pretty much other people answer it even before I do, because I've seen and met many people at the page. I've met them at signings all over the United States, and I've met them in Europe. They'll come up and I was walking through the Tower of London, and a woman came up and said, "I'm a person of the page, and I follow you on Facebook." So I think there's so many now that the skeptics who used to come on fairly regularly and say, "You're not Anne Rice," they don't do it anymore.
It's a little shocking to everyone, right? Because there are so many people in popular culture, writers and artists that aren't engaging on a one-to-one level. So
Well, I think our page is pretty special, but they make it special.
I
Their
wanna-
willingness, to
I want to
engage.
stick on talking about the online world because I appreciate that you like it a lot and are happy with it. But you've got some issues with it. You signed a petition to ban anonymous online book reviews from Amazon.
Yes, I did.
Earlier this year. You are an activist and you talk about that. Why was it important for you to take that stand?
Well, I didn't write the petition myself, but it was written by somebody I knew, and I signed it in the hope that if Amazon went to real names, we would have less gaming of the system by people hiding behind pseudonyms. And it was never that I wanted really to ban pseudonyms. It was to try to do something constructive, to alleviate the problem of people who were really abusing the site and abusing people on it, customers as well as authors and other reviewers. And again, my hope was Amazon would look at this issue and they'd do something about it. The petition did gather something like 8,000 signatures plus, and the person who started it did present it in writing to Amazon, but I never heard any response. But often that's the case. Amazon doesn't respond directly to an issue, but they do evolve. And I hope maybe as a result of the petition, they've at least looked at some of the problems of fake identities and fake reviews and sock puppetry and so
Yeah,
forth.
you haven't minced any words. I mean, you call some of these people who do this, obsessive abusers who found some sort of dark home. And this is what on Amazon, tormenting writers.
Yeah, there's a group. But the good news is it's not a very big group of people.
But do writers really feel tormented?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I get emails from the writers these people have gone after, and it's unbelievable. I got an email from one writer who said all she did was review a book by an author they were targeting. and they came after her like hornets. They descended on her own books and neg-voted the good reviews and flooded with one-line bad reviews. I mean, they can be quite formidable for a very young author. You know, for a self-published indie author, beginning author, they can be quite terrible. But again, there are not very many of them. This is not readers in general. This is not a war between authors and readers. When you hear that headline's wrong. This is a small group of very vocal bullies and abusers who play the Amazon site like a game. And I don't know why Amazon doesn't ban them. I mean, it seems to me they violate all the guidelines for the site.
And do you dismiss them? I mean, are there examples or reviews or comments that I mean, you're so established, you're mature, you know who you are, all those things that when you read them that you feel hurt by them?
No, they can't hurt an author like me. They would like to, but they really can't. Again, this is a matter of sticking up for the young authors, the vulnerable authors. I stumbled across these people in the Amazon forums. I didn't know they existed. They came after me, and they pretty much outed themselves with their attack posts. And they have created a fairly toxic atmosphere in those forums for authors. And they go to those forums to gossip about authors. And target authors, pick them out. And sometimes it will have to do with something an author said publicly. It won't have to do with the quality of a book or anything even remotely resembling the quality of a book. It'll be something that they think is politically incorrect.
And I just want you to be very clear about this in case anyone just wasn't listening to you right there, that for you, this is not about legitimate criticism
Not
of
at
a book.
all.
Okay.
No. I mean, let me emphasize that every day, legitimate readers and customers go on Amazon and they write negative reviews and positive reviews that are wonderful. It's a great system. This is a small gang of people who game that system.
They're bullies.
They're bullies. They're mean girls. That's a good, I mean, some of them are men, but mean girls don't have to be female. They're mean girls. They're like the mean girls in school who gang up on vulnerable people. And I really do hope in time Amazon will evolve to where they will investigate patterns of bullying. You know, right now they can investigate an individual post. If somebody calls you a foul name, you can get the post deleted. But they can't really detect patterns of bullying that go on there.
I want to bring this sort of online world back to Prince Lestat because so with social media, authors are subject to much criticism and scrutiny, more than obviously ever before.
Sure.
And the challenge of dealing with that is a recurring theme in Prince Lestat. It's not so easy to discreetly sink your fangs into a neck in an alleyway when someone might be shooting a video in that alleyway with their iPhone.
Yeah.
How do you maintain that balance between engaging online and sharing your life with your fans while also keeping a sense of distance and privacy from it?
Well, I don't know that I see any problem. I don't have any major secrets to keep. Number one, there's not much anybody could reveal about my private life that would make any difference to anyone. It's very boring. I write and that's it. I live in a nice little house in Palm Desert, California, and I have 3 cats, and there's no scandal there. So people in general don't invade my privacy. They never have. If I'm recognized in a bookstore or an airport or somewhere, people are just very nice. They'll just wave and say, "I read your books." I've never had a real problem with my private life and my public life and so forth. I do think social media can be rough, and probably I couldn't have engaged like this earlier in my life. Maybe decades ago, I couldn't have taken it. You have to learn how to take the insulting and the upsetting remarks. But 99% of what I receive in social media is positive.
What's next?
Well, I have to go home and find out what happens to my vampire characters next. I mean, I have to go on from Prince Lestat and talk about all the different new characters and what they're doing and how Lestat's going to adjust to these decisions that he made in this book. How is he going to live with it all? How is the brat prince going to stop being a brat?
Will he stop being a brat?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Anne Rice, so spectacular meeting you. Kind of mind-blowing that I'm sitting across from you. Thank you. Enjoy your writing so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.